Then from a cheaper perspective, and really related to this, is we see Femtocell and small cell as the most cost-effective way to deliver mobile broadband services. We as a company provide solutions to network equipment providers. So we bring together software and hardware and pre-integration with silicon providers to deliver an enabling technology that allows Femtocell access point providers and gateway equipment providers to deliver a solution very, very quickly. If you came by to see us today, you would get to see a bunch of demonstrations, live demonstrations of both LTE small cells and 3G small cells with our partners, as well as Internet Offload Gateway, which is within the DPI domain of our business. That's just another way of dealing with the increased amount of mobile data coming over the network. And we're just down the hall, so feel free to drop in and see those things. So the last company slide here before I get into the meat of the presentation is just a little bit about what we announced coming into the show. And it helps you understand a little bit more about who we are and how we fit into the ecosystem. So one of the key announcements was with InterDigital. And we're doing work both in partnership and on behalf of InterDigital that actually expands the capabilities of the Femtocell. It sits next to the Femtocell and delivers what's called bandwidth management capability. And it allows like a home gateway to essentially aggregate both unlicensed and licensed spectrum and provide additional capacity to devices that both have a 3G capability as well as a Wi-Fi capability. We also announced our ecosystem of Femtocell silicon providers who we've integrated our software with. So what we've done is provided a standard reference application for both LTE and 3G Femtocells, and then integrated that with a silicon ecosystem, which includes every major provider, from Qualcomm, and TI, and Picochip, to Freescale and the rest of the providers of this technology. So our customers can choose our software and then choose the silicon solution that actually matches their needs. The final thing I'll highlight is that we're very proud tonight we're a finalist for a GSMA award. So we delivered an LTE Femtocell reference design to the market, and it's been recognized as one of the enabling technology breakthroughs for 2010. So that's enough self-aggrandizement. I want to spend more time now on sort of my key topic, which is what's happened in this marketplace over the last 4 years. So I'll talk about the ecosystem, really both technology providers, as well as sort of how standards and things have evolved. I'll talk about the value proposition, and this is both from the component to the operator, but also from the operator to the consumer, and then spend the last few minutes on my predictions for this marketplace and what's going to come next and what do we need to do to really grow the industry. So ecosystems where I'll start off, and really we've come a very long way. For some people in the crowd, Femtocell may be a new term or a new capability, but for many I think people really understand what this technology is because we already have 18 live commercial networks. So this is being deployed across the world by various operators, both into the enterprise and into the residential space, and it's really just on the cusp of mass market. We have over 60 trials underway with various operators really figuring out exactly how they're going to deliver this solution to the marketplace. So in a very short period of time, especially when you consider what it takes to roll out mobile infrastructure, there's been a huge amount of success and traction for this technology. Now, whenever you have a big market and a lot of growth and opportunity within the operator community, you develop a very large ecosystem. And there's already 120 and growing members within the Femto Forum itself. And this is a huge validation for the value of the technology and the availability of the technology, as well as the opportunity for both new companies and operators alike to take advantage of this. And it's really just the beginning. I think if you've seen the scrolling video, Simon Saunders references some of these numbers, but huge predictions for the number of Femtocells that are out there. There's already more Femtocells in the North American market than there are macro cells. So just a massive uptake and we're really kind of on the cusp of mass market distribution. So when you're looking at an ecosystem, you kind of have to understand what goes on within one of these devices to understand how the ecosystem's evolved. And each one of these blue boxes can actually be a discrete component that's provided by a vendor within the marketplace. Or in a lot of cases, these components are being pre-integrated and delivered as a package to a network equipment provider to then very quickly deliver their solution to the marketplace. So when you look inside a Femtocell, you have everything from the platform and radio components to the physical layer software, to security, both software and accelerators, to the protocols and application code, to timing and GPS and management. So what you see is there's all of these elements that are an opportunity to either provide technology that's differentiated and customized for the Femtocell, or software that's leveraged from a broad ecosystem into a Femtocell. Same idea on the Femto gateway. Within a Femto gateway, you have the hardware platform, you have middleware, you have management framework, security. I put scaling here because one of the really big challenges in the Femtocell gateway is managing hundreds of thousands of devices in a local area. So being able to scale the solution properly for that. And then the application. So this is just a way to understand sort of how the ecosystem has evolved, because there's players who not just deliver the whole end-to-end solution, but deliver something down to a security module that's specifically targeted for the Femtocell domain. This is just a view of who's in the Femto forum, and what I like to use this for is kind of understand, outside of the operator community, how has the ecosystem aligned itself. And there's kind of a couple of different stratification of this. When you look at the end-to-end system providers, these are your tier 1 equipment manufacturers, your Alcatel-Lucents, your Ciscos, who have really been providing everything from Femtocell to the gateway to the integration services and the management framework to the end operator. And they've been the channel. So they may not be building the Femtocell or Femtocell gateway, but they're the trusted organization for rolling out mobile equipment into an operator's license spectrum. So they've been that path. At the next tier below that, there's really people who are delivering products or Femtocell access points themselves. And this market's really exploded. It's gone from sort of the initial innovators like Ubiquitous and IP Access, who've delivered solutions, to Far East ODMs, who are leveraging reference designs to get into the marketplace, focusing on their manufacturing capability to deliver a very low-cost Femtocell access point. At the next tier down, you have your components and software providers. And this really is made up of software companies like Continuous Computing, of silicon vendors who are delivering integrated systems on a chip targeted for Femtocell, to timing reference modules and things like that all go into building up this Femtocell. So the amazing thing is that there's such a massive number of organizations who are creating profitable business off of Femto. And how do we do that? There's no way to have an ecosystem without standards. So what I'm showing here is sort of the architecture standards progression. So when we first came into the Femto forum, one of the big things that had to be focused on was, how is this device going to integrate with the overall operator network? You're not going to deliver a new piece of equipment into the mobile network if it's going to disrupt existing services. And there was over 20 different views on how this was supposed to be done. But very rapidly, industry came together and chose a single standard for each of the technologies, so both CDMA 2000 and wideband CDMA, for delivering this solution. Now, what this has done is allowed us to provide a promise of what would be a multi-FAP ecosystem for delivery into the operator community. So if you can provide competition within the operator community, you can drive down cost. So where we've gone in this, and where we're focused now, is going from putting pen to paper and agreeing on what it's supposed to look like, to actually doing the heavy lifting of implementing that standard and integrating it with one another and making sure it works. So there's a lot of focus right now on what are called plug fests, where we all come together, we test our equipment, we prove to the operator community that this is going to work and this standard is ratified and capable. So that's what's allowed that large number of companies to come in as either a Femtocell gateway provider or a Femtocell access provider and deliver a point solution that can be envisaged as a long-term consumer electronic type value proposition. In addition to standards at the network level that allows you to be a component provider, we've seen a huge explosion of semiconductor silicon vendors entering this marketplace. So one of the absolutely critical things for driving mass market is being able to reduce cost. And one of the key things for that is an ecosystem and having a bunch of vendors competing for slots and providing more and more integration. So when we first started this whole Femtocell saga, there was one provider of silicon technology that was specifically targeted for Femtocells, and that was PicoChip. Flash forward to 4 years later, and every major silicon vendor is delivering Femtocell targeted system-on-a-chip technology. This is a huge validation of this marketplace to see the players like Qualcomm, Texas Instruments, Freescale, Broadcom through their acquisition of Porcello, and others entering this marketplace and delivering new integrated system-on-a-chip silicon to deliver a better solution into the market and take advantage of this growing opportunity. So what this has done is it's put more functionality into a single chip. So some of those discrete elements like timing and GPS and security acceleration being put in one die, one system on a chip. It's also driven down costs, so there's more competition, there's more capability and focus on the process that goes into building these solutions, and increased performance. Now, one of the key things to remember, though, is that that's of no help if you can't leverage your software across these solutions. So when you build software targeted for a femtocell, or you choose to source software targeted for a femtocell, you need to be able to port that from one piece of silicon to the other. And that's where we as a company have facilitated the market in providing a standard software solution that integrates with all of these silicon vendors and allows customers to take advantage of this innovation that's going on in this space. Additionally, for us to be able to do that and other vendors to be able to do that, you had to have standards not just at the network level, but within the device. So one of the key things that happened is the definition of what's called FAPI, or Femto API. And this actually delivers an API between the layer 1, or the physical layer within the processor, up to the layer 2 and above software. So what this means is when you get the system on a chip with a physical layer implementation, its API, or the way you integrate with it, is common across the industry. So essentially you port the software, you build the software, and you have the same API and able to deliver the same service over a new silicon. So if I come out with something that's silicon that's much higher performance, I don't have to reinvest in new software development. And that's absolutely critical to taking advantage of these new platforms that are coming to the marketplace. Additionally, we've standardized on a module approach. And this is really looking at the Femto device as another PCB that you integrate into another application or equipment that goes into the home. So you can envisage a home gateway that has a femtocell embedded within it. And what this standard does, it defines the interfaces around that, so you can design essentially a space within your home gateway, your set-top box, to install a femtocell that's coming as a module. Finally, one of the key things to driving this ecosystem has been standardization on the management side of things. To deliver millions of devices into a network, you have to have a well-defined and proven management framework. So when you're at home and you have your set-top box and it reboots and you get a new software load, the femtocell needs to do the same thing. When you install the femtocell, you don't want to have to do anything. You want to plug it in and have it work. And that's what we've done on the management side of things. We've defined a way of doing that, and we're working very hard to make sure there's true interoperability between management systems and the femtocells themselves now. So really what this has done is allowed you to have diversity of femtocells, silicon innovation, and optimized costs, which is critical to our industry.